I usually don't pay much attention to customers. No offense, it's just that when you make 200 lattes a day, your brain goes into autopilot. Good morning. Hi there. Oat milk? Sure thing. Here's your total. Next. But that morning, there was one guy I couldn't ignore. And not because he was loud or rude. No, it was the opposite. He was too quiet. Too controlled. And the way he looked around, it wasn't someone just searching for caffeine. He was waiting for something. My name's Jacob. I'm 28, and I work as a barista at a Starbucks in downtown Portland. I know this neighborhood. I know my regulars. And I know when someone doesn't belong. It was a typical Tuesday morning. People with laptops, loud phone calls, kids sipping chocolate milk, and me, trying not to lose my mind since clocking in at 6:30 a.m. At 9:47, just as the rush started to ease, she walked in. Tall, light brown hair, green coat, and that kind of soft smile that says she actually likes mornings. She looked around, like she was expecting someone. And then he came in. I knew right away, they weren't a couple. First, there was no rhythm between them. She walked with purpose. He trailed a few steps behind, like tagging along last minute. Second, she talked and laughed. He didn't. He scanned the shop like he was doing recon, where the cameras were, where the exits were, who was behind the counter. He even checked his watch. Twice. Not hers or his. And too often. I've worked with people long enough to tell who's here for caffeine and who's here for something else. He didn't look like a movie villain. More like someone constantly on edge. Dark jacket, close-cut hair, scruffy face. Confident in a way that felt forced, like someone holding their breath. They walked up to the counter. I'll have a vanilla latte, she said with the kind of warm smile people give when they've never had a bad barista experience. I'll pay for it, he cut in quickly, flashing an old credit card. I nodded. And for you, sir? Americano, please. He didn't even look at me. He stood slightly behind her the entire time, like she was the reason he had permission to be there. Like she was his cover. I rang them up, wished them a good day, and watched as he pointed to a table in the back corner, the one where the Wi-Fi barely reaches and people go when they don't want to be seen. I made a mental note. Didn't log it. Didn't mention it to a coworker. Just filed it away. Because sometimes you don't know a detail matters until it's the only thing that does. He followed her to the table. As she took off her coat and settled in, he scanned the room again. Like a stray cat stepping into someone else's yard. Then he sat, folding his hands neatly on the table like he was waiting for an order to be executed. I called out her drink, Kara, and placed the cup on the bar. I glanced over. She was laughing. He wasn't. She looked at her phone. He looked at me. For a second, directly in the eyes. Cold. Calculated. Like he wanted to know what I knew. And if you had asked me then what I felt in that exact moment, I couldn't have told you. But now, after everything that happened, I can tell you clearly, I felt evil. Sometimes, it only takes one cup of coffee to change someone's fate. They'd been sitting at that back corner table for about 5 minutes. The girl, Kara, as her cup read, had laid her scarf across the chair and was scrolling through her phone. The guy barely touched his drink. He just sat upright, scanning the room again and again. No one noticed him. He blended in. Starbucks isn't a movie. People don't watch each other. Everyone's in their own world, earbuds in, heads down, chasing tasks and notifications. Except me. I was behind the bar, wiping stray drops off the counter and collecting empty cups. My job is to stay in motion, to be nearly invisible. But that's the upside of it. I see everything, and no one sees me. That's why I noticed it. Kara stood up, said something to the guy, probably about heading to the restroom, and slowly walked toward the back hallway. He nodded, followed her with his eyes, and then immediately looked at me. Very quickly. A snap glance? Was I watching? I pretended to clean the milk steamer. Like I wasn't paying attention. But I saw him. I saw his hand lift, slow and careful, as if just adjusting her lid. His movements were lazy, almost casual, but I know body language. This was deliberate. He popped off the lid. From inside his jacket, he pulled out something small, a white cap or maybe a tiny vial, and sprinkled a white powder into her cup. Quick. Calm. Then he sealed the lid back on, pressed it gently, and set his hands back on the table like nothing had happened. Took a sip from his own water. Scanned the room again. I nearly dropped the towel. My heart started pounding in my ears. My brain went silent. Like the world had paused around one thought. That was not normal. He slipped something into her drink. It wasn't a joke. Not a vitamin. Not sugar. Not some dumb prank. You don't put powder into a girl's drink when she's gone for 30 seconds. That's not an accident. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime. A real one. Right in front of me. And there I was, holding a latte in one hand and a decision in the other. What do I do? First came the anger. Sharp and instant. My fist clenched. I wanted to walk out, slam his face against the table, grab the cup and throw it in his eyes, scream, "Are you kidding me?" But I knew if I did that, I wouldn't save her. You can't scare guys like him. If he sensed something, he might grab her. Or she might drink the coffee just to keep things calm. Or worse, he'd run. No. I had to think. And act. Fast. Kara was walking back. I glanced at the clock. She'd been gone 2 minutes, maybe. It felt like a lifetime. I had less than 10 seconds to figure out how to save her without blowing everything. I grabbed a tray, walked around the counter like I had a task to do, approached their table casually. "Sorry to bother you," I said with the most corporate-friendly smile I could muster. "We just found out we might have had a filtration issue with one of our water lines. As a precaution, I need to replace your drinks." On the house, of course. Kara raised her eyebrows, surprised. The guy snapped his head up. "What? Why?" he asked. His voice wobbled. Low, but shaky. "I already tasted mine." "It's fine," he added, trying to play it cool. "Totally understand," I replied evenly. "Just following protocol. New safety standards. We can't risk serving anything that's not perfect. We didn't ask for this." "It's fine," he nearly growled. I turned to Kara, locking eyes with her. "Trust me. You have great taste, and we wouldn't want you getting anything subpar today." She nodded, clearly confused but not wanting to cause a scene. "Okay. Thanks. I guess." I picked up both cups, hers and his. He hesitated. Looked like he wanted to stop me, but didn't. He couldn't. He hadn't expected pushback. And he sure didn't expect a barista at Starbucks to catch his move. I walked back to the counter holding her cup like it was a bomb. We had a waste shelf under the register for spoiled drinks. I placed it there gently, lid off. And just in case, marked it with a Sharpie. Then I grabbed new cups and started remaking their drinks. But in my head, one thing kept screaming, "Call the cops." Now, I whispered to my coworker to quietly alert security and dial the police. I knew we had cameras. We had the cup. We had me. But most importantly, she was still alive. And I had to keep it that way. I glanced over. They were still sitting. He leaned in, whispering something. She nodded, listening. I tried to catch her eyes. To give a signal. Anything. But she wasn't looking at me. He was. And this time, when our eyes met, there was something new in his. Worry. He knew I knew. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy in an apron, grabbing 5 minutes between orders and keeping an eye on the floor. But the moment I walked back to the bar with her poison coffee hidden away and handed them new drinks, I became his enemy. And hers? Her shield. One she didn't even know about yet. I made the fresh drinks on autopilot. Her usual vanilla latte. His Americano. When I returned to their table, he was sitting differently, leaning forward, hands clasped, fingers tight. His eyes flicked to mine, then to the drinks. Searching for something. Suspicion. A slip. But I was calm. "Here you go," I said with a cheerful tone that now felt like a provocation. "Fresh drinks. On the house. And hey, cranberry muffin, my favorite. Want to try one? Also on us." "Really?" Kara asked, surprised. "Absolutely. We just want to make sure you're having a good day." He didn't say a word. Just stared. She smiled and nodded, accepting the treat. I knew we had maybe 5 minutes. My coworker had already made the call as soon as I gave the signal. She told dispatch we might be witnessing a crime. We had evidence. Surveillance. A suspect in place. Now I had one job left. Keep things normal. Don't tip him off. I moved back to the bar and started organizing dishes. But I kept my peripheral locked on them. He didn't touch the new drink. Instead, he stared at his hand. Then at her cup. Twice, he slid it subtly closer to her, saying things like, "Try it. Tastes the same, right?" She nodded, picked it up slowly. Took a sip. New coffee. Safe. But he didn't know that. He froze as she drank, watching like he expected something to happen. I wanted to shout, "You're not drinking what he gave you." But I stayed still. He needed to believe nothing had changed. That I hadn't swapped anything. That he still had control. I pulled out my phone and pretended to check an order app. Instead, I sent a quick text to security near the exit. Target. Male. Dark jacket. Back corner. Don't engage until signal. Cops inbound. Response came fast. Copy. Watching. They were ready. If he ran, he wouldn't make it far. 3 more minutes passed. He got jittery, talking faster, leaning back, then forward again. His hands moved restlessly over the table, hovering near the cup, like he wasn't sure whether to drink it or smash it. He kept glancing around. He saw me behind the counter, popping in and out of view. Our eyes met, again and again, for split seconds. He knew something was off, but not what. Kara, meanwhile, chatted on. Work stuff. Her dog. How she missed old classmates. She had no clue the man across from her was minutes away from drugging her. Or worse. He nodded along, but he wasn't listening. His eyes scanned the shop. The cameras. Security by the door. He was starting to sense it. Less than a minute left. I made my final move. I brought him a glass of water. Nothing fancy. Just water, and handed it over with a smile. Sir, could you sign this receipt? Just for inventory records, standard policy. He took the pen. Signed. His hand was shaking. He knew. That's when he stood up fast. Chair scraped hard. We need to go, he said. I forgot. I have a meeting. We're late. Wait. Already? Kara blinked. Now, he snapped. Her face changed. Silence. Something in his tone reminded her he wasn't her friend. And just then, the front door opened. 2 uniformed officers entered. Calm. Firm. He turned. I started to the exit, then the counter, then the shelf where I hid the cup. He understood everything. They moved toward him. One held back by the entrance. The other stepped in closer. Sir, could we have a word? Just a couple of questions. You've got the wrong guy, he said, backing away. I didn't do anything. Won't take long. Please come with us. He sidestepped, as if to squeeze past them. Security blocked the way. Another officer reached for his shoulder radio. Then he snapped. Sudden motion. Toward Kara. She recoiled. He grabbed her wrist. But he didn't get far. 5 seconds. One hold. One twist. They brought him down fast. Clean. Tactical. He shouted incoherently. Angry. Desperate. Said it was a mistake. That he knew her from school. That she agreed to meet. Kara stood frozen. As they hauled him out, she stared at me. And I stared back. I nodded. And in that moment, she understood. When they escorted him out of the cafe, it all happened so fast, like someone hit a fast-forward button. 1 second he was gripping her wrist, ready to pull her away. The next, he was on the floor, pinned under an officer's knee. Then came the cuffs, the radio chatter, the shout, suspect secured. And the door closed behind him. Then silence. Not the kind you hear. Starbucks was still buzzing. People whispered. A guy by the window pulled out his phone to film until security asked him to stop. But inside me, there was total silence. The kind that follows thunder. Or a gunshot. Kara was still seated. Hands on her lap. Spine straight. Eyes wide open. She didn't cry. Didn't speak. She just stared. I stepped out from behind the counter and slowly walked to her. With the kind of softness you use when speaking to someone who just survived something they weren't ready for. You're okay, I said quietly. You're safe now. She turned to me. Her face was blank. The kind of blank that says, I haven't caught up with what just happened. Like someone who just walked away from a crash. Still alive, but not fully back. You knew, she whispered. I nodded. I saw him put something in your drink. When you stepped away. Silence. She swallowed hard. Just a small movement in her throat, like the air itself was suddenly sharp. You saved me. I didn't know what to say. This wasn't the moment for hero lines. Or movie quotes. I just said, I did what I had to do. Then I turned to the officers at the bar. One of them, a woman in her 40s with a badge that read Slater, walked up. You're the employee who saw the incident? Yes, ma'am. My name's Jacob. I was on bar. I saw everything. And I saved the cup. It's under the counter, on the side shelf. She nodded and followed me. I opened the compartment where we stash abandoned or bad orders. There it was, a white paper cup with Kara written on the side, lid snapped on tight, and a sharp mark across it, D&D. I handed it over in a sealed plastic bag. I didn't touch it. After I saw him pour something in, I swapped it out immediately. Slater thanked me. She sealed the cup into an evidence container and called for forensics on her radio. I stood next to her and realized my hands were shaking. Not a lot, but enough. When adrenaline's pumping, you don't feel it. But when it drops, your body reminds you what it's just been through. Can we access your security footage? Asked the second officer, A younger guy with a name tag, Martinez. Of course. Everything records locally. Our manager has access. I'll get her. While they pulled up the footage, Kara slowly walked over to me. Quiet steps. Small. Like each one took effort. I don't understand. We hadn't seen each other in 10 years, she said. He messaged me a couple of weeks ago. Said he was back in town. Asked if I wanted coffee. I thought, we'd just catch up. I didn't answer. Because sometimes people talk not to get answers, but to try to make sense of their own. He was off. Stiff. But I thought, maybe he's just awkward. Nervous. People change, right? She covered her mouth with one hand. Slowly. Like the words she just spoke finally caught up and scared her. What if you hadn't noticed? I took a breath. The first real one in what felt like forever. But I did. She nodded. Her eyes watered, but she didn't let them fall. She just wiped the edge of her cheek. Thank you, she said. Just, thank you. I wanted to say, anytime, or, it's my job. But honestly, it wasn't. They hired me to make coffee. Froth milk. Recommend a muffin. Not to stop crimes. When forensics arrived, I stepped into the back. Just to breathe. To stand alone. To process. A little later, my manager came in. Patted me on the shoulder. Said he was proud. Said corporate would probably reach out. Maybe a bonus. Maybe press. I didn't care. Because in that moment, I realized something. I could have stayed silent. I could have missed it. I could have thought, not my problem. I could have pretended I didn't see. Like so many do. But I didn't. And now, watching them help Kara into the back of the police car to take her home and get her statement, I felt something strange. Peace. I don't know what was in that powder, but I know nothing good ever comes from stuff like that. And I know she didn't drink it. And that is enough. After the police drove Kara away, the coffee shop quieted again, but not the way it does on a lazy Sunday morning. This was a different kind of silence. The kind where no one wants to speak too loudly, afraid they might shatter the fragile sense of what just happened. I stood behind the bar, staring into a cup that had gone cold half an hour ago. Everything looked normal. Someone ordered a muffin. Another guy asked if we had a phone charger. One guy waited for his caramel frappuccino to be called. But mentally, I was still back in that moment, watching him lift the lid off her cup. Officer Slater returned about 20 minutes later. She came to the counter, no vest now, just her radio and a tired but focused face. We'll need your signature on the witness statement. And if possible, a copy of the surveillance footage, she said. Of course, I replied, signing on the tablet. She nodded. We ran his info. Jacob Allenhurst, 29. Released on parole 8 weeks ago. Served nearly 5 years for robbery. He mugged an elderly woman in broad daylight. I didn't say anything. I wanted to, but the words didn't come. I just gripped my cup tighter. We believe he started looking up people from his past, ones who wouldn't question his presence. Kara wasn't a random choice. We found a folder in his phone full of her old photos. Screenshots from her social media. A year old. I closed my eyes for a moment. He had been watching her. All this time. Since his release. Slater continued. Also, he had a one-way bus ticket. Canada border. And a small bottle with the same substance we found in the cup. We're fairly sure he intended to disappear right after she passed out. But you caught him. I exhaled. Yes. Because you didn't stay silent. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the thought wouldn't leave me. What if I had been looking at my phone? What if I hadn't noticed him move? Slater walked away. And I stayed there, surrounded by the smell of coffee, pastries, and the hum of the fridge. Usually, I liked closing shifts. They were calming. Shut down the machine, wipe the counters, count the drawer, heat a final cup of tea. But not tonight. Tonight, everything felt different. Like I'd aged a decade in one shift. People were calling me a hero. Co-workers were posting about it in the group chat. Voice of Portland had already tweeted the story. My name had even been mentioned on the local news. The regional Starbucks manager sent an email saying he was inspired. But I didn't want praise. I just wanted to breathe. Epilogue: a few days later, a letter came from the police. The test results confirmed it. Fast-acting sedative. 1 dose could knock someone unconscious in 4 to 6 minutes. This whole thing had come within inches. The next day, a woman came into the store. I didn't recognize her at first until she asked, "Are you Jacob? The barista?" "Yes, that's me. I'm Kara's mother." That's when it hit. She stepped closer. In her hands, a brown paper bag with homemade cookies and a small handwritten note. She asked me to bring this. She said she can't talk about it yet, It's still too much. But you saved her. And I will never, ever forget that. I took the bag, and only then realized my hands were trembling. The card had just 2 lines, written in careful, neat handwriting. You were invisible, but you were the only one who saw. Thank you for being exactly where you were. I placed the note in the drawer beneath the register, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Even if all you do is pour coffee, you can still notice something that changes a life, and maybe saves it.